Yeah, nice.
I'm gonna have Melissa check on the microphone, make sure that the audio sounds good, although it was coming through here pretty fine. We're just testing out this microphone because we might be able to find a way to get it on the table for council meetings and make the audio better. But if you want to join the stream, the meeting, so that you can do, I'll share screen and that will be easier.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do
I
it.
sent an email.
You sent an email?
Yeah, just, and then turn your volume off on the computer so we don't get the feedback loops.
Oh, click below to join the webinar, is that it? Yeah, hang on, I want to make sure, okay, turn the auto off. That's it. Unmute your speaker. Oh, it says it's muted. You are using the computer audio. That should be, yeah, I got that one. Yeah, let's do it. It doesn't say it on the screen.
Everybody. Oh, I gotta bring everybody in. I hope this is gonna work. You want to be in here twice. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. You're using the computer audio.
That's fine. You'd hear it through your speaker by now. Okay, so we don't, all of our ears should be ringing with them.
Feedback. Laura, are you having some?
Oh, I see. There's your screen like mine. Okay, I see each other. And then
Oh, yeah.
And then when
So
she shares the screen, it'll be.
We're doing, no. Well, I'm gonna share the screen of the Excel spreadsheet that we're working with to develop the budget. That way I can make changes on the fly. You can sort of see how that's all gonna work together.
Yeah.
Because basically the big document that I gave you of all of the spreadsheet is gonna be obsolete as soon as we make one change. So this way, if I share my screen.
So where is your?
We're seeing a lot of edits.
Sent it this afternoon. About, I don't know, 1:30, 2 o'clock. All right, I'm gonna have to another person because it's not like.
1:33 p.m. is the email.
yes, the market's right. Let's get slaughtered here.
Well, if you're long.
Well, yeah.
Yes, but.
Stock picker, so I have a lot of stock.
Okay, we are live.
Okay, you ready to go?
We'll be ready by the time you're ready.
Okay, the Budget and Finance Committee is doing a special meeting today, March 15, 2022, 4 p.m. Actually 4:07. Laurel Drake, Storm DeConso, Beth Kelly, and myself, Christian Petriconis, are in attendance. And then let me read the notice. Until further notice, the Corporation of Harpers Ferry governing and deliberative bodies will hold its meetings and/or hearings virtually via Zoom webinar, which provides for public participation during a public comment period when applicable and when posted on the agenda. Alternatively, the public may watch by YouTube, live stream, or listen by telephone. These options comply with the West Virginia Open Governmental Meetings Act. All right. Call to order. Okay, approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as submitted.
And I second it. Discussion. Oh, second. Go ahead. You can second it. Sure. And all those in favor?
Yeah.
Aye. Okay, we got one item. Okay. Discussion and action regarding the development of the fiscal year 2022 and / 2023 coal severance and town budget.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Letting me know I'm changed as a different person. It's not like.
Just to let you know, there's been behind the scenes stuff kind of working a little bit, you know, and one of the big things is we know we're only going to act on money that we think we're going to have based on our operations of the town. There is some potential outside money, as we know from
Different revenue.
different revenue streams that may very well come in later, but we're not counting on them today. And so when we work on this budget, we'll be looking at our normal type budget. Then, and some things may be cut back, but we will re-look at those in the summer, or late spring, make some adjustments.
Sure,
Those
revenues
funds
are
come through.
different, yeah.
So don't think this is if one of our outside vendors is concerned that, something, we cut it back to a smaller number, assure them that we're going to relook at everything if things transpire like we think they might, but again, we can't count on it because it's not in the bank.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, but it's just not letting me go in as somebody other than the corporation, even though I have my own name. So I'm gonna have to switch to my other computer. So maybe you can also review a little bit about what we talked with the merchants about.
Yeah, so we had a discussion with a meeting Monday with Kathy Baldo, who represents the Merchants Association. And it's one of our larger expenses, which is old time Christmas. And so their ask was higher than it's ever been. And by the way, that's how a lot of requests have been. We've gotten bigger ones and we've gotten actually more. But theirs was the highest, so we had a discussion about that. We're looking at, they're looking at potentially becoming a nonprofit organization. Okay, so they're not yet, but that's what they're looking to do, which then would afford them to charge for some stuff, particularly the ride on the wagon, the carriage ride. It's real popular. It's been free, and they have not been able to charge for that. So we were looking for a way to either develop a revenue stream for another charity, like the Harpers Ferry Historic Foundation or some other group, and then in their case, it could be the Merchants Association itself. So, so the wagon ride thing we believe that will slide out of the budget at this time, or their ask. The second one has to.
I'm sorry, when you say slide out,
Meaning
they won't have it.
They won't ask for that.
They won't ask for that.
Okay.
That's not like locked in stone yet. She still has to visit with the Merchants Association, but.
And that was the one that was somewhat expensive to begin with, and they had to find a new vendor that was going to be even more expensive.
Correct.
So that'll be backed out of their old time Christmas.
Yeah,
request.
it's very popular, and it's been free all these years, but we were just looking as a potential revenue stream for a nonprofit and let them kind of run it, or somehow we have to generate funds we just have to get the budget down to some level.
Does Steve remember the year the force step away on 340 crossed over the past the traffic light and down the hill on the other side?
Well,
It
no.
was empty.
Oh,
Yeah, they
Got away,
stopped it. Yeah, they got away.
and the second item we talked to them about, and this is one of their big budget asks, is the lighting. exterior lighting on the buildings in Lower Town. So we looked at
Recording in progress.
we looked at a lot of different ways of, and one of the things we were going to see if we can get them put up and left up. And that would reduce the cost a bit for this year for taking it down, but also from now on, it would not be an expense that we would have to reoccur every year.
Capital expense and not.
Yeah.
Expense.
And it's a tough job to put them up. It's on a hill, it's on a grade. It requires a boom truck. I mean, it's a big effort. And so those were the two areas we're looking at to see if we can get them come down. And we're also to see if some of the other other income sources, municipalities might help more, like maybe Baller might do more. Because we're paying, we're kicking in the majority of the funds.
Yeah.
So.
Have they thought about splitting their request and asking?
Oh, they have. It's split. If you look at it in the book here, there's about 5 different. They've got it. Yeah. And we really like when one of these groups has other income streams. We don't like to be the only one doing the funding.
Yeah.
And by the way, there's going to be nobody stepping out of the mean because you are on a foundation or you're on the women's club or we can't. We're too small. I thought about it today. There is no way. We're all in some way or another.
Well, as long, I think if we're disclosing what our conflicts, potential conflicts are.
Like my wife's trustee for the for the
Harpers Ferry Boulevard Historic Town Foundation, and I'm a board member.
Yeah, so that's there, right there. You're in the women's club.
Yeah.
My wife's in the women's club. I mean, so that's 2 right there I could think of. And of course, I'm in the Merchants Association. I'm also the liaison.
Well, I think as we come to each of these, if we have a potential conflict of interest, we should state it at that time.
But I think for the most part, we're speaking in generalities about the entire request made by each one and direct if you want to not make comment because of that. That's one thing, but yeah. Okay. So I have not been paying attention except on the first rate. Did we approve the agenda?
Yes, we're already moving ahead. Yeah.
All right, so my suggestion to kind of work through this and see where we are, even though we've been talking about specific requests that all these commissions and committees have made, is to first run through the draft that I've made, make sure that we're all dialed into the income side, and we're in agreement that that is where it should be. Let you know about changes in costs that are fixed that we won't have control over. Talk a little bit about COLA, talk a little bit about other departmental adjustments that have been requested with regard to payroll. So that sort of fixes our base. And then we can see where that is and then start talking more about these specific changes. Does that seem like a reasonable approach?
Yes, and just to ask, have there been significant changes since the last meeting we had, or because we did go over?
No, I don't know. There's no significant changes from the last meeting.
Yes.
I just want to let you know what I've done to formulate what we have.
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
And she has done this, I've been on the committee for a few years, and she really takes the lead on this and has a very good structure for this meeting. It works well.
So first thing I want to do is just show you where we are with our fund balances and how we develop that. We have the, let me go back over here. We have these lines here in the beginning, the restricted fund balance, the committed fund balance, the assigned fund balance, and the unassigned fund balance.
And Laurel, see how they go down the side there? There's something on.
Yeah, she's got
Oh, you got it too.
Yeah, we're looking at that. This will help you with descriptions, but also on your screen, if you're on the Zoom, you should see where I'm referring to that, where that shows up in the budget here that we're examining.
296 through 299.
So like 296, we don't have any.
Yeah. So I'm gonna see if you can see my mouse now when I move it around over there. You got me? All right, so I'm up here on this. This is our restricted fund balance. Then we've got committed fund balance, unassigned fund, assigned fund balance and unassigned fund balance. All right, so I'm going to just show you really quickly how we get there. The definite,
What fund is this? Is it in the name?
I'm gonna explain that right now. All right, so this is how we formulate all 4 of those areas. If you look at the very top, we've got restricted fund balance, that's the one below it. Committed fund balance, that's down here. Assigned and unassigned. The definitions of those are down here. Restricted fund balance is constraints that are funds that have constraints placed on them by an outside agency, law or regulation of government imposed by law through constitutional provision or enabling. So an example of that is the hotel motel fund. We're only able to use that in a certain manner. So we don't consume all of the money that's available to us to use that doesn't go to the CVB in a given year. We carry that forward, but we can't throw it in the general fund. It has to be used in a certain way.
What is that, 906?
That's our 906. Also, another one that falls into that category would be the drug forfeiture money. Okay. So our fund, our restricted fund balance is going to be 66,000 as our prediction today. And by the way, I have gone through assignment of these fund balances based on what we currently know today and historical data, as well as the entire budget that I'm presenting to you with Charlie already. So just so you're aware. The committed fund is something that's assigned to a special purpose pursuant to constraints imposed by formal action of the city council. So we have a couple of those. One of those is the K9 fund that was a long time ago assigned to be used for that should that project never resurface. Additionally, we had assigned a few years ago the Washington Street Stormwater Project completion, which is that giant mixer something bob down there by Schubert's property. The council may unfund that if they want to at some time, but right now, because that was a big chunk of money and there was a contract at one time, it has been sitting as a restricted fund, committed.
And right now, just a little background on that little piece, I won't take too long, but the SWAN organization is going to be kind of involved in that little section, and they want us to delay
What's
until
also,
they figure out the engineering.
it's also going to be integrated with the stormwater planning. So,
And that's why I say, if this council wants to undo
Yeah.
that commitment and reassign that money to
That's what it
that
is right
thing.
now.
Right, so we might want to just let her hang there until such time as, yeah. All right, and then there's still about $5,000 in the Potomac Street Fund that has not been consumed. And I know there's a few items that Christian brought forward with beautification that we might want to think about using that money for. Also, I had heard way back a while ago, something about some kind of bike rack in the way of a handicap ramp
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
that still may need to be addressed, so.
we may have to cut that out.
All right, so that makes up our committed fund. Assigned fund is constrained by the government's intended use for specific purposes, but is not restricted or committed. So those things will be equipment replacement fund. So we do have a special bank account for equipment replacement fund. It really is part of the general operating fund, but we do like to kind of hold it for that if we can.
Right.
The court operating fund, we build up that fund over the year and then we take out a portion of it to the general fund, but essentially we need to hold 50,000 in there for operating. Parks and Rec, that's part of the pot, but separate.
So Laurel, it's basically funds that technically do not have to be kept there, but there are very solid reasons why we don't want to touch them.
Thank you, that's a really good explanation, right? And then the council had us put in this category the $15,000 to build out the leased space downstairs. That action has not been undone, and so that might want to be undone by this council to reassign that to the renovation. The other thing is there was $5,000 in there for town hall building repairs that had to do with the soffit and painting and things like that. So that's sitting there. There was $8,000 committed to assigned to mailboxes, and that project has been changed around a little bit. So we may want to shrink that. Okay, so these are things that y'all can consider acting upon. And then the stormwater study match I have it at 10. And the High Street renovation match I have in at 80.
Correct.
And then I have taken out the Armory Canal Trail match because I am of the understanding that that will be distributed by the time we get to fiscal 23. Okay, so it's not here. Now, one of our obligations, one of your obligations is that if as we come to the end of June, we have to go back and say, okay, what is our real carry forward amount? And how accurate are we? So if, for instance, that project that's not the case, then we'll reassign, we'll put it in there and we'll have it taken out of it in the expense. It'll just be a
Right, so-
job.
So if button these numbers, then it shows that that has already been spent.
Right, according to how we're looking at this as of June 30, we're gonna say that number has already been gone.
So if we need to add it back, it would net out to zero. It's
Yeah.
just that we need to hit the reset button.
Exactly,
Got it.
right.
And this is the 80K.
Yeah, well, this would be the 20 or 50 that
It got
goes
revised
to,
downward from the
Yeah.
original last, I think 23.
right,
22.
to Armory Trail.
Oh, Armory
Not to
Trail
the
got
High
reduced,
Street.
right,
High
okay.
Street's still sitting at 80, okay? All right,
The 10,000 is that is possibly 5,000 because of the Oliver, that
Correct.
we voted 10 because we
Correct.
didn't know
That's
about
correct.
Oliver.
It will likely be 5.
right.
But
Okay,
I found out from experience, it is always better to ask for
Yep.
more.
As
We've been
goes
caught.
over-
right.
I've been caught personally a few times, and I don't want to do that anymore. And I learned from Jay particularly, not pad them, but
No.
make them
Allow for it.
realistic.
Be conservative with your estimates. so
And
that
the
you don't get-
SAO fully and very specifically advises this. You know, go low on your income, go high on your expenses. It's always easier to correct in that in the opposite fashion than the other way around.
Yeah.
And so we've always had very good success with that. So, yeah. So part of, so all of these funds many of these funds in some fashion or another, then there's a balance that ends up that's unassigned, right? So that's our fourth column over here. And you'll see like over here in the general fund, we started out with 555,000, but we've got some items that fell into assigned and committed. That's gonna leave us 499,500 that's unassigned, right?
So I can go back to Armory Canal Trail. Remember when it was contemplated that those funds would be distributed?
Well, I asked Chris Craig about that the other night. He felt like it would be relatively soon.
Okay.
Yeah, and and specifically with the intention of should I leave here or not? And like you said, if it carries forward, it hasn't gone anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
So all we're gonna do is stick it in the income and take it out of it.
I trust
Expense.
if that happens, Chris will remember it.
Oh, absolutely, yes. And it's still part of our fiscal 22 budget.
Yeah.
So it's there,
Great.
yeah.
There's
All
a
right.
proof in that
So
budget.
that means that so if we look down here at the bottom, our total unassigned fund is 949,400. All right. So we're gonna go back over here to our main page, and there are those 4 carried forward numbers that we were just discussing. Okay. I have received from the,
And Laurel, does that add up? Does that all make sense to you? No, it's the first time.
Well, you've taken the income and divided it up into how it has to be allocated
Well,
according to law.
those are not incomes. Those are reserves that are in our bank accounts that we expect will be in our bank account when we get to June 30. And we're dividing them up as to how we may use those reserves.
So you can think of them as our internal bank accounts.
Right.
with the descriptions
Before
like that, yeah.
income. Now we're gonna start talking about income. Okay. So the first one is property tax. This number has been received by the SAO. We can't touch that number. Oil and gas severance, it's been running about 500 for the past several years, so I just left that alone. Excise on utilities, that seems to roll pretty good with 10,000 each year, each of these. Those are your halfway marks there, and that's pretty consistent. Okay, business and occupation tax. So I went a little higher than normal here for our first run. In the beginning of fiscal 22, we started at 128. Okay, we bumped it on our first revision to 130. As of the end of January, we're at 118. We just did our revision in February, and we went at 175. So I kind of went in between there. Are you comfortable with that number?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Liquor and wine is honing right there on 50 and holding steady, 15, excuse me. Animal control is not too much ever to sneeze at. All right, let's go back on hotel motel. We started at 55, we kept it holding steady. As of the end of January, we're at 46, and so we bumped it to 69 on a revision, but I stayed at 56. I just prefer, number one, to be conservative, but number two, also, Christian and I were talking a little bit, like, even though lots of times when gas prices are high, we tend to continue to do very well because we're local to a lot of places, so people choose to stay local. But I think we're also in a weird boomerang year with COVID, in that people who had put off longer travel, further travel, and made those commitments are sticking with those commitments. And so I'm not sure how it's going to flush out.
I can look ahead at my future business because I see bookings ahead, and we're getting pretty decent, but we're not the same as last year. We're less, and we're not getting the midweek business we used to get, which so I think her number is very reasonable.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Conservative.
All right, sales tax, we started at 222. We held steady on our first revision. We are now at 206 or more. We revised to 250. So I did the same kind of thing there, just popped it down a little bit, but tried to keep it reasonable. Okay.
So it's a portion of the other one, more or less.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, fines, fees, and court costs. We started this at 70. We dropped it to 55. We're at 36 now. I kind of just took a shot in the dark there. Anybody have any?
I really don't have a sense for it, so yeah.
And this is like parking fines. And
Parking fines as well as other fines. But I think that we had, during COVID, the flow of that had sort of slowed down because there were some restrictions that the state had put on having people
Right.
needing to pay fines and things like that. So I think that that's been released. I feel like our officers are at an active level that's normal. So I don't feel like we need to go too far conservative, but
yeah, I agree. I think it's fine. It's and we thought 340, if the 340 closure going on, they say that number a little bit too high, but it's not going to happen this year.
oh, I didn't think about that. You're right.
Well, I guess it could happen in fiscal 23.
No, it won't happen until fiscal 24.
Oh, because it'll be in the fall.
of
This
next year.
budget ends, we're working on June of next year.
What was announced recently?
Yeah.
When it was going to be kicked off, I wasn't sure if it was going to be the first half of 23 or the second.
Second.
Second. So this is a realistic number, but we'd have to look at it for next year.
All right, licenses. I mean, we're really. I honestly, I probably could have made that 35, but it's not a
Yeah,
big
it's fine.
hitter. So
It's
Yeah.
not-
building permit, same kind of thing. That's always a toss up. You don't really know what's going to go out in there, but not a heavy hitter. IRP fees fluctuates a little bit. If we get 5, that I think we will, but that's great. But I'm counting 4. All right, parking meter revenue. We started at 210. We dropped it to 200. We're at 138. I also did a little study when I did this last week, but I now can revise positively to let you know. I had made an average, not including what we just received yesterday, this 83. I averaged everything that we received this year and compared it to last year, and we were at 95%
Wow.
total. Then I added this year, and now we're this month, and now we're at 103. So, I feel like that number is still probably pretty good without being too stiff.
I can tell you that in the parking community, and we're going to try to, with those mailboxes, hopefully pick up another 4 or 5 spots. We're not going to change our rates, but last year was the first time we went from $1 to $2 for Camp Hill, and we've spending $3 for Potomac for a few years now.
Yep. So even if there's a small drop off, the additional spaces will make up for it.
Yeah,
Should be.
yeah, I think so. So I think the number is reasonable.
All right, rents and concessions, I just bumped that a little bit because we always do get a little bit of change with each year. The post office is a little bit higher, and all the cell towers will be marginally higher, so I just gave a little bump there.
Which we're gonna,
This is your tree grant under the federal government grant. Contributions from other entities, that is the 80,000 that comes from Park Service, and since they just did finalize that resolution on the budget, then we should be getting our hit off of that within the next 30 days, I would say.
this is, so you're aware, this is from the Park Service because our police assist indirectly with them, so they compensate us for that.
Right. It's
And
the
it's
one
been there
that's,
for a long time.
right, we're just not gonna touch it.
We're not gonna touch you, we're not gonna talk to anybody, we're just gonna.
All right, and then table gaming income, last year we ended up around 9,500. We started with 9. We actually we're at 85 almost now, so we bumped that up, but I didn't want to jump too high, so I could put it at 10.
That's fine.
Interest, that's
Well, is that sports betting gonna be picking up? I mean, it's a new, Sardini's one of the,
I don't know where that's gonna fall in the, we get a couple different lottery streams. We get about 5 different lottery streams, and one's video, one's the racetrack, one's table gaming at Greenbrier, and we get another one. I
if
think.
I'm not, if I'm not in that, a new stream. 'cause that's a
Well,
fairly new
or
stream.
I don't know if the new stream is combined in with one of those. I'm not sure. It might be in video or something like that. And I also don't know how the laws are written on that, because all those things are based on usually population and proximity to the locale. And so, further away you are, the less population, the less you get. But I don't know how that one's written.
Yeah,
So that's going to be probably a wait and see kind
and
of.
I don't think we have any tables or anything in this town. Ballard does. At the Anvil. They have
So,
a betting area.
Huh, nice.
all right, interest, I went lower. It was lower this year, so I just tried to.
On
be
investments?
conservative. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Refunds and rebates, that's our P card. That's just your average number. Lottery, again, that's looking healthier than it had been. If you look at, we were at about 26 last year and we held steady with that, but we're already at 22. So I just thought 30 was a conservative number that we can bump later. Miscellaneous revenue, we won't get that refund from, that we're at 15 there because that refund from Swan, so that's a
Right.
different thing.
That's a
One time.
BZAs, also permits and stuff, so, all right.
So if we do get the additional funds from Swan later, where would that go? In that
B&O.
line? Oh, B&O. Okay, right, okay,
Right, speed construction.
right, okay, okay.
So basically, this puts us at 2.26 million, okay, and over our original submission for fiscal 22, we're up just about 10%. We were at 2,079,000. So we're just almost 10% over our original submission, and we're just a smidge over our revision for fiscal 22. So that all sort of made sense to me. Does that seem reasonable to
Yes.
everybody?
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. So I'm gonna leave these guys. All right. BZA is just expenses for permits and that kind of, excuse me, not permits, newspaper postings. However, I made a note over here. They did request
See that
their
number?
big number.
I remember.
Okay. All right.
We'll
So I
talk
just
about
made a
it.
note. That's what's been requested. It's Easter, it's not Christmas. The 705 is a new number that we use to adjust and balance when we get to the end. That's what's left over as our operating nest egg, so to speak. So we don't,
Case of emergency.
right, and it's the unassigned balance out of the general fund that we can work with, and it's our reserve for the year that we
Okay,
use to
so-
operate.
This is the one that you gauge the percentage revenue.
Yes, and I will, I have a little bit of calculation on that. I'll try to show you later, once we decide where we want to be.
Yep.
All right, so in public safety, I put in 1 cruiser. Okay. In streets and transportation. I think I have this on here. I have
And we have to pay for these things now.
We're gonna pay off.
I mean, we always pay them, but I mean, we
It's not-
pay it at once.
It's a one-time purchase, maybe
Yep.
there.
And this is because
Yeah,
these
it's,
cruisers wear out. I mean, yeah, I think, we just spent $5 on the transmission.
Yeah.
Jeez.
our streets and transportation includes the 27,500 that's for the stormwater repair down on Washington Street that we were just discussing. It also takes the High Street grant and the 10,000 of the stormwater study. Okay?
Okay,
yep.
All right, in the parking area, no one has said a word to me about the attendant. If we want to have an attendant aside from,
what do you like? Is that okay? We didn't have an attendant last year, and it seemed to work out well. The police officers, they were doing parking tickets, and I just feel that even though that revenue stream doesn't go directly to them, it goes to them indirectly from in through the general fund. I'm talking about,
Yeah.
because I think in the past they was, well, we don't have anything to do with parking, but they really do, and they're out there, and I just think that honestly the police officers should be doing the tickets, and I don't think we should be hiring a attendant.
Yeah, it seems like the parking revenues continue to go up, which indicates that there isn't a big problem with people skipping out on it. On Potomac Street, every once in a while, people will park illegally down there, but then, they come by and they get ticketed, and that's that.
But the police officers in town, they can, I believe, do
They do.
that duty,
They do.
and they do. But we didn't have an attendant last year, and it worked out just fine. So I think we don't need it.
all right, so here's what I'm gonna suggest. So, the yellow lines that are, the yellow rows on here are the rows, the totals that get submitted to the state auditor's office. They are not interested in the detail above it that generates that row, okay? So do some thinking about that. Maybe we do a little more research with the chief about that. So that if you want it, we don't have to change it right now. So the theory behind that is that if you all recommend to council later down the road that you'd like to readjust the assignment of payroll taxes, Wi-Fi, and parking expenses to be more like the mailbox project, and maybe getting this Wi-Fi thing going and taking some of this $4,300 out of the payroll and dedicating it to that. That's just an internal reassignment that we do. The state auditor's office doesn't care. They're just seeing that out of our total parking expense area, we are going to have we're predicting $11,300 in expenses.
Got it.
So what you want to be thinking about now is whether that's a number that you want to use, or if you want to carve at it or add to it in any fashion. But right now, I just reduced the payroll number.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's
okay.
reasonable, since it's likely there will be other parking expenses. And if that gives us leeway, if later
Sure.
down the road, we're like, well, no, we really need a parking attendant.
You've got a little something there you can work with, exactly. Okay, all right, we're gonna chug along then. All right, our next area is parks, and this is always a little bit confusing because they have a line up top, but then they have a line, they have some expenses down below, so, and then some of their things are funded through 906 and that kind of thing. So these would be things that actually would kind of come out directly with them. And they're predicting some events, so that's what their income is above and their expense below. And then also the town also shares some of this expense. So it's always a wonky formula with them. But in any event, got materials and supplies on the, let me get to my some notes down here. Yeah, not too much. All right, materials and supplies. So those are for the events. Got some items in here for other projects.
Gazebo is one that that we have to do some heavy maintenance on that.
Yeah, I was
Um,
kept looking at it, seeing,
Yeah, we have
surprised that hasn't
to,
been
we have to
touched.
strip the old paint off the roof, and then we have to repaint. And that's actually, that's a big job. You're gonna need either scaffolding, or you're gonna need a boom truck. I mean, maybe they could do it on a ladder, but the way the roof is, you can't stand on it.
Yeah.
So that's also historic preservation.
It is,
And so I kind of was splitting that in my
Okay.
thinking between that and some arts and humanities money. You know, we have a large carry forward number in the arts and humanities. You have a big laundry list of items, which you and I went through, and I also given to you, but we never discussed.
it's a big one.
Where I went through the list that Christian gave, and
Oh,
I
yeah, I
tried
saw
to
it
assign
briefly.
where this would come out of the budget.
Yeah.
A lot of it's in 906, and I think that certainly
Okay.
qualifies for historic preservation.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
So without,
What list is that?
well, Christian made a list of things that had to do with, he submitted on behalf of the mayor, a
Is that
request for funding for the beautification, and
It's,
I said,
It's at the back of
yes.
this one.
And I asked him, and I apologize, it was sometime in the last 2 weeks, I said, you gotta give me more than beautification. So he gave me this list, we talked about it, and then I went back to, and I assigned where it might come out of the budget.
Some,
I don't have any dollars, these are all punts, but from this point forward, what we can do is then start working on estimates,
oh, my
right?
gosh, I was
Right.
making some rough estimates. But some of that's gonna be done by us internally, but some of it's gonna be contracted out.
Yeah.
And recall that this is where we're assigning the money, but it's not actually getting distributed. Like later, it will need to go forth before town
Yeah.
council with the actual program and the details.
Right,
So at that point,
And we have bidding to go through, procurement, I mean,
But this is also a wish list. isn't it?
Uh-huh.
yes,
Yes, it is.
it's a
So
wish
it's
list.
just a-
We may never get it.
Okay.
Yep, it's a wish list, yep. Okay, so parks there, is pretty, about average is where we've been in the past. So the visitors bureau number, that's half of what we take in on hotel motel, so that is tied by formula to the top hotel motel income. And then the arts and humanities numbers takes care of the art 906 carry forward balance plus the half that comes in on hotel motel.
Yep.
Okay. All right, historic landmarks, I put.
oh, and sorry, so basically that's what is available to that budget line, not necessarily what's being assigned to it.
So historic landmarks, they had made a request about that sign, that wayside marker too. And I also was thinking about that in,
Boundary Street.
yeah, and I think I also had thought to assign that to, either economic development or 906, rather than putting it specifically
Okay,
here. I left the library at 3,500, we can look at that, so actually I increased it from 3,000 to 3,500. Look at that more closely later. Next thing is economic development, we got a total of $27,000 in economic development requests that I could see. We'll talk about that more specifically later. Some of it I pulled out and pushed around into different parts of the budget, so again, we'll go back to that. But I think with pushing things around a little bit, I got us down to what is gonna work more reasonably here. And again, if we get a stronger revenue stream, bumping this up $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 to be able to meet the other asks is gonna be. Yeah. Okay, office of mayor.
Can I ask about this salary thing, just in general, not for the budget here, but just, we're predicated by ordinance how the town council's compensated and the mayor. And it's been that number forever. And
Well, actually,
The
no.
mayor was not.
No?
No. Both the council and the mayor's numbers increased at the
Oh, it's-
2018 when you got on.
Oh,
At least the mayor's, the councils may not have. So here's how that works. If you want to make a change in that, you would have to vote it in but it can't be during your term.
Okay, yeah.
So
I'm
if you wanna
fine
make
with
a change to it, the first way that it can become effective would be fiscal 24. Am I saying that right?
that. Yeah, you know what, that's
No, wait,
23,
when is our-
24.
Yeah, because the election will be in 23, so fiscal 24 would be when
Right.
it became effective.
Yeah.
So you should contemplate that, and that would be something that you would work on for the next fiscal budget. But you can't
I-
do it while you're still in
Right,
office.
I wasn't, I knew that, but I already felt it wasn't ethical.
Yeah, right.
But the next time, because the workload is
It's tremendous.
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 It's not
Absolutely.
fair. It's really
And
not
it really
fair.
feels like a slap in the face, honestly. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. So that's how that works.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of these days, that's, I'm gonna bring it up. I
Yeah.
just-
Yeah, well, the other way would be if we're doing well enough that we could
Yeah.
have staff, that the council is no
Wouldn't
longer that
have to
much of
do
a
quite
working
as
staff.
much. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
that too.
that's true.
All right, so member of council, recorder, that all stays the same. So I did put in a COLA increase for everybody of,
Was it the 3?
I think it's the 3. Why can't I find it? Where is my? Very strange. Oh. Oh, yeah, I can't show this page because I'm on screen. I think it's 3. And that then compensates, I'm gonna check that for you while we talk. That then compensates for also my split to the water.
Did you pay between the
Oh,
water
yes.
and gas?
I can check it on here. Oh, no, I haven't. Okay, good, it's not gonna get
Yeah,
bad.
we talked about the 3.
All right. Okay, so yeah, so let me
Yeah,
go
three is
in,
solid, and, you know,
The
uh,
long-term inflation rate has been 3, but
it's spiked right
now
now.
it's spiked a lot, but
I did a lot of research on this.
What may require an adjustment later, as it says, sort, you know, if things get out of whack.
There's, we have 5% pay raise to the school teachers from on the state level and service personnel. For the 3rd time since 2018, plus the governor gave a one-time 2.5% bonus to fight inflation. I don't know how they're doing that because it's something we're told we're not allowed to do, but that's what's going on at state level as of December. Virginia's giving a 3.85%. Maryland gave a 1% in January and is giving a 3% in July.
well, actually,
And
West Virginia did through legislature, I just read it, it's 5% for state employees.
right, that's what I just said.
Yeah, well, that the governor asked, but it is.
Oh,
now.
but they did it.
They
Okay.
did it.
Okay, so, and then, Social Security gave a 5.9% bump in January. And so I went with 3.
Went with 3,
to
I
start.
went low, but I mean, it's up
defer
to.
to your wisdom, but that's what these numbers are based off of.
Yeah, I think it's warranted to go a little higher. I mean, I know we did the increases, but it basically chips out from those increases.
So here's what we can do. So let's go through this. I also incorporated it in the police budget. What's happening is the clerk is not included in there. The police clerk, even though she's got time down here, she's got time upstairs, she's in as the city clerk, servicing all of those things. So before the police clerk's salary was in the police department wages. What is in the police department wages now is the increases that were requested specifically by the chief in the documentation that you received that was confidential. However, it does not include any additional officers at this time.
Okay.
Okay, so, and then all the other personnel have, and they also have a COLA increase on top of that wage increase, and then all the other personnel have this 3%. So let's look at it, and then, when we're talking about changes, I can just go and flip the switch and change that number and see what happens.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so next is clerk, she's in there. with her also anticipated increases as the year progresses. And then legislative reserve, we've always.
Part of that, we made an agreement with her.
Yes, it's
It's
incorporated.
going up. I mean,
Well, as long as, under the conditions of our
yeah,
arrangement,
the
and
provision
so
of appraisal or.
what I've got in there is how much of the years of this switch, how much is that right? And then litigation reserve, we hold that bounds our deductible. All right, dues with Region 9, they are going up, and I think it went up pretty significantly. I still need to double check that number, but yeah. The tree committee, they didn't finalize their documents, but it's usually half and half, about totaling 6 that we finance, and then we get 3 back on the top. So it costs us 3, but we have to
Outlay.
Outlay.
Outlay 3 comes back.
We will have elections. I was advised that our previous election budget should be sufficient. City Hall, there's an increase for the accrued leave that would tend to all general fund employees with regard to the COVID policy, should they all take on that additional leave. My sense from the initial distribution of the policy and response that I've received is that we will not need to realize that full number. But it's
Not
there,
sure.
and we can adjust that in fiscal 23 or halfway through if we feel the need.
Yep.
Okay. Audit costs, we will be doing at least one audit. I'm hoping to get one done this year, but the one that we do in 23 will be a single audit, which costs more than a regular one. So that's why I went higher with that number. I mean, capital outlay, there is possibility. I've been told that my computer may need to be replaced, so I just made a 10% bump there. We hardly ever use that number for anything except computers. Contracted services, we did have numbers back in 22 that had to do with STEM services. So now it just requires that now it's just our IT services. Data processing, that's our web hosting, and using subscriptions, that's home rule and everything else, that's all the little municipal league, all that other big stuff that we get involved with. Insurance and bonds, I just bumped that number a little bit. I don't ever find out. So what happens is we do this budget, and in May, we get our quote from the insurance company, and we have like 2 weeks to turn it around, and I have to pay a down payment, and it's always blindsides me.
So the mystical actuarial table spit out something, and
Yeah, and then and the last 3 years they've changed insurers on us. So not that it's bad. I mean, they're really doing their job.
Yeah.
But in any event,
Oh,
I'm
I remember
hoping that-
getting involved in that last
Yes.
year. Oh, yeah.
and so be prepared, because I do say, here's your lifeline. Come and look at this document. The mayor has to sign it, and if you have any opposition, we need to have a meeting and that kind of thing. So in any event, I kind of just am speculating that's going to go up a little bit, but hopefully not a whole lot. And you'll see this in various departments, in the police department, and then when we do the water department, it's also a little bit in the street. Those are the places that I spread it out across. So the policy is not just that, it's all of that together. It's over 50,000 for all of us. Leased equipment, that's our copy machine and the container outside that the copy machine shared with the water. Repairs and building maintenance, where's my cheat sheet here? All right, so that was the 15,000 for the maintenance for the building out downstairs, and the 5,000 for the soffit. And so what I said was we may want to reconsider redirecting that. And then also I tried to add a little bit that had to do with higher priority preparation that we talked about with the renovation. So some planning, maybe security, and post office upgrades.
We need to also get consultants in here to structural engineer to look at the building. We need
Yeah.
HVAC looked at. We need to
And that's what I meant
electrical
by,
and plumbing.
that's what I meant by planning. So
So
I just threw that number out there, but
I mentioned it for you.
solar, yeah. All right, pension expense, that's based off of the portion of your salaries and wages that applies to that. Professional services, I'm dropping that a little bit, that's Cox Holiday, I'm hoping for that number to go down, but at the same time, you have a lot of projects that then they end up getting involved in. I think the daily interaction is dropping, but we do then involve them in a lot of projects.
plan, I
that
still want
takes
to do
time.
that. It's gonna involve them to get the summary thing.
Yes. Okay, payroll taxes is a function of this number. This is your OCO and your office coordinator here combined. Telephone, utilities. The rest of that's just, so basically, it's not a big jump over where we currently are in our revision, 1%.
No.
Right. Contingency may not be more than 10% of our full budget, so that's one that we use to help balance things out when we get to the bottom. All right, we're down in the police department. I dropped the auto and supplies. We usually do that. We start at 14, we end up going up. I was a little bit hesitant to do that because of gas prices. I don't know. I defer to your wisdom there.
Well, it's hard to say because we're gonna order a new cruiser.
And see, I thought
That
about
could be
that
2
too.
years from now. before
Well,
we
we're
get it.
still waiting on one. So
Yeah, we have another
Yeah.
one already coming,
Yeah.
Well, if that comes this year, then fuel.
then
will
you'll
go up.
drop one off and
but it's the maintenance junk
Right,
that's just
that-
killing us.
well, we
These repairs.
do have maintenance and repairs to auto down below.
Oh.
This is more your basic fuel and other supplies. So I don't know. We can always make adjustment to it later. It's not going to be a huge adjustment.
Yeah.
Your fees here are the bank fees, and then contracted services. That is, I just forget what that is. Too many contracted service lines here. That's your prosecutor and your IT services. All right, office supplies. And departmental supplies. Okay, so I tried to do a little more refining of where things are going with for Alyssa on this, and just trying to look at carefully at what we're doing here. And all right, so where I have the cursor right now, this 31.8 is inclusive of the totals above there. So that's your police department supplies, your materials for the office, and then this departmental supplies, which is blank. So I made that high because that is to replace the radios, the body radios, which are not able to be repaired anymore. They're so old.
Okay.
So-
I remember the chief talking about
Yeah,
that.
so that's,
The radios or cameras?
no, the radios,
Okay.
yeah.
The
There's-
cameras are supposed to be updated or
The
something.
cameras need to be, there's contracts that need to be renewed on them, and if we get a new officer or two, we would need to add those.
Yeah.
But I only put into the formulation along here, and can't just tell you off the top of my head, but I incorporated those. Actually, in that line, that $26,000 line is the licenses for the body cams and the radios, and ammunition and the and then the new radio for the body. So if we would add an officer, we would need to add $2,700 in there for new body cam.
Beyond what's here.
Right, but that's not in our formula right now, so I didn't put it in there, okay? All right, and then. Oh yeah, so we've got a lot more, oh no, that's right, we were at 40. And PEIA insurance is going up 5%. So that's across the board for everybody, anybody who had it, I bumped that up 5%. And also the retirement contribution that the town is required to make has been dropped from 10% to 9%. That's a state, that's controlled by the retirement board. I got the letter right here.
Why would they do that?
Yeah,
I
so
don't have
That's
the
not good for
answer to-
employees.
Well, I don't have the answer, but when I first started here, it was 11 and it went to 10 for like 2 years, and now it's.
This is
9.
this town contributes.
That's
But
required.
why would they dictate to us? No, there must be some law.
Here, I have the letter right here, you can read it.
All right.
So.
As a financial consultant, I'm telling you,
Yeah, no,
more is
I get
better.
I know. So in any event, that's all been incorporated in here. Okay. So maintenance and auto repairs, I went from, we're at 12 now. In our revision, I went to 9. I was assuming we'd be getting our new car, at least one,
We are.
the one that's on order.
One fuel
Right.
transmission that can tell.
Yeah.
Not the other.
So pension, payroll tax, leased equipment, property insurance and bond, I just bumped that a wee bit. And then your salary, so we were here, and that included your clerk's wage for the whole year, okay? And now we're here, so that's no clerk, but it's with your salary adjustments, but no new officers, okay? No big changes here. Dropped, oh, well, that item, whoa, what's going on? That number, West Virginia, that's what we pay the state based on the tickets. So that moves as a function of up above. All right, so you were at 496 and we're at 472. So that's actually a drop, mostly due to that salary change. Pulling that one salary out.
Yes.
Okay. All right, contribution fire department, they get the oil.
Or the coal
This is a
severance.
coal severance,
Coal severance.
and we give it to them.
And then we also put 3,000 out of this budget into that.
Right.
All right, and then, which reminds me, we should be making a list as we work through here, or at least we need to for our next meeting when we make a final blessing of this and pass it on to council so that coal severance, library, fire department for 22 get chunked out. We need to do that at least by the next regular council meeting. But this body should say, we're recommending to council
before we
to
assign
pay for fiscal 22, our contribution to the fire department, our contribution to the library.
So, and we pay that in July?
No, we should pay it now,
Okay.
so that
All
we're
right.
not waiting until the end of the year.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're down to the street department, and I made adjustment for gas there. That's based on trend. Capital outlay, what am I doing with that? Anything specific, I don't know. I don't have anything super specific noted there, except things that were kind of old and carried forward. So that's one that we can use to work on projects
You know,
off your list.
Yeah, I got a whole bunch of stuff there.
That's the sort of thing that might come out of capital.
In some cases, yeah. And also in contracted services, so I bumped it a little bit there, okay. And remember that all these things that we're looking at, they're not yellow lines, so
Right.
we can mush them.
They're fungible for
Right.
these purposes.
Insurance, this is, yeah, that's the commercial liability. Auto repairs. No real big changes here. Your salary is your COLA, not adjusting beyond that.
Well, there is one thing, I don't know, it's capital outlay, but I know that they want to put some sort of snow equipment on the current pickup that we have. Not the waterworks truck, but the silver truck we have here.
I've received no information about that.
No.
So,
Yeah, they want a small
no,
plow
we
in
would-
front
we
and
would
salt
need to
it.
have, and, is there a plan afoot? I mean, that's more than a snowplow plan. So I know nothing. Somebody needs to talk to me about it. All right, I can't put it in the budget. Okay, so materials and supplies on the streets. I put the cleaning of the light bulb fixtures that you
Yes.
talked about in here, kind of
Yeah.
as, I put it as material supplies, I kind of put it in as like contract service, but also if, I don't know if we'll need to buy additional bulbs.
No.
Okay,
no,
so this is gonna do it.
yes, that's,
All right.
that's it.
Well, then
The
you got
bulbs.
$2,500 in there to get those fixtures clean. You should be.
Clean,
so,
one of the
okay.
panes is broken.
Okay.
It's on the street. That's fine.
And I would suspect then, and you need to help me understand what happens with our billing when our own light bulbs that we're purchasing goes into the bill, because right now on the Washington Street bills, we pay a certain amount of money for fixtures. And my understanding was because it was their bulbs or something. Now I could be wrong.
It was fixed.
Thought we own fixtures, well.
Yeah, but they're maintaining everything. I don't know. It's-
Well, if we should be anticipating that is gonna drop, I'd just like to know so I can make sure it's
I
happening.
think the electrical's gonna drop, but.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah.
But the big thing is not the electric, it's the fixture rental.
I don't think that's
Leasing.
changed.
Okay.
So maybe a misnomer, it's not actually renting the fixture, but for them to do.
We
something.
actually own the fixtures. They say we own them, but I don't even know. They took one down, I don't know where it went.
Okay.
And we have one of our fixtures sitting up at the Hilltop site.
Right.
We need to get that. And I already talked to Swan about it, and they'll get it for us.
All right, so street signs, I just left that $1,000 in there for that. I pushed us back to 25 on the snow. We'll probably get one more, I think we'll be fine with the 35 where we are totally. We got this last storm, but it should push us over there. So yeah, but 25 is usually where we start, because a really light will go less than that. Really, yeah. Public transit. Okay, so we'll go back and talk about the funding request here, but I split that between economic development and this line. Okay. And then office attorney, I dropped that to 10, because that's where we started. So there you go.
Solid.
Okay.
See what happens when we start to.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the funding request. Let me stop this screen share. Oh, well, did you want me to make an adjustment on that? You want to go through this first and then look at the COLA, or you want me to?
Now, let's look at the COLA first, just because that might be a big move.
Okay. All right. What do you want to look at it? What do you want to change it to?
I don't know, yeah, I was gonna say, go with the state.
5?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
I think that's fine.
Okay, so
I mean, I don't like to pull numbers out of a hat, so this
Right.
one, we're not, we're
you're
doing
going
what the
with what
state
the
is
state
doing.
recommended.
Right, and 3% is standard, and right now
Right.
it's just not standard.
So basically that added $10,000.
Okay,
Okay,
okay, it's not hard.
Okay. All right. So on this guy, on the left-hand side is what was requested. And the first page is arts and humanities.
wait a second, hang on, I gotta get.
I can stack in there, Christian.
Submissions. Well, I know I have it. I just can't. Oh. Okay.
So first Zion, this was,
Oh, yeah, that's this one here. Yeah, that was to do the,
Yeah, the windows, most of the windows, but other things to close in the structure. And full disclosure, I am a board member of the Harpers-Ferry Boulevard Historic Town Foundation.
where is that thing? It's,
this is, yeah,
we're going through the booklet, right?
Here it is, window restoration and lead paint.
Where is it, in the middle?
Yeah. I think it's under first Zion.
sorry, Lynn.
Is it after the
Oh,
EPTA?
no, it's before the Women's Club,
Okay.
unless I'm of these things.
I didn't
And
know.
after,
Oh, yeah, he's
after
right.
Kathy
It's-
Baldwin. After-
It's right before the Woodpecker Trail thing, and
Right.
after the merchants. The closer to the.
Oh, it's after the merchants?
Yep, it's
And
right after the merchants.
also recall, this is one that it's possible, if not likely, that there will be another funding source that will end up covering this.
Okay.
So, and there are other sources of funding for this. This is not, the foundation is not relying on the town entirely for this.
Okay,
Whatever. But I,
Yeah. you can talk more.
all right, so, so that's 8,000. Did I get that?
all right.
I'm looking at the wrong one.
Right now, well, so the purpose of this meeting today, are we trying to come up with figures for the requests?
Yes.
Or are we just going over the requests? What is our purpose today?
We're deciding if we're going to allocate in the budget either the amounts that they have asked for or less. And then
We're trying to make the final decision today.
not on if it's going to actually be funded, but if we're going to set the funds aside. It'll be up to the council later for the organization to come forth and request the funds.
But it's gonna be our recommendation eventually. Goes before the council.
With regard to this particular one, 906.
Yeah, that's,
We have budgeted in our budget, over $90,000, I think, for this item, and that's because there's a lot of carry forward. What's going on, though, it's so that we've been requested, to provide $48,575,000 of that. And I might be wrong, I just didn't quickly find my 906 here. Oh, here it is, I'm sorry, 91.5. Okay, so the question becomes, and what these people want to know from us after we approve this budget, and I'm getting emails every day, do I know how much money I'm getting? Do I know how much money I'm getting? As soon as we approve this budget and it goes in the paper and this SAO approves it, then our job is to send back to these people, okay, right now approved in the budget is X numbers of dollars, so they can make their budgets and start planning.
Right.
So our job now is to review this and say, based on our budget and based on what we know, we're going to tell them that we have included in our budget X number of dollars for you to spend on X project. But-
So I didn't realize that this was planned for today. And I would have liked to learn more about the Women's Club on their request. But I mean, it's okay. I just did not realize that today was the day we were going to talk about this. You know, I don't know.
Yeah,
well, the Women's Club request I remember well.
I know it pretty well too.
Presented.
Yeah, I actually, it was well presented by Carolyn. I've been to the site. We're
gonna take these one at a time.
yeah.
Okay.
So let's finish design. There's the 8,000 and then there's the trail book. Is that,
The trail book is down in economic development,
okay, makes sense.
for 1,200, and that's what they've always asked for that.
Right, that's the one that's been bounced from organization to organization.
Okay, so that's a given on that one.
Somehow I missed putting in the.
Cemetery is not on this one.
But they did have a request, and I know that
Yeah, it was blank on our sheet
I
here.
know, and I, here it is. It's right
It was
here.
worth like
It's supposed to be
$5,000.
$6,000.
6,000, yes, to do the
I
fence.
totally blew that.
You know, the trail book was one of those items that needed to be checked out further too, because it wasn't clear from the request of what they were going to put in the trail book. because there's already a whole spread put in by the CVP, the Visitor Conventions Bureau. And so somebody needs to find out what are they putting in and what is it that must be supposed to be.
Well, they put in more of a Jefferson County thing,
Yes, they do.
and
but
we
they
do
also-
Harper's Ferry.
But they also use specific Harper's Ferry.
They used to do that one, but now it's come to the foundation. It's not-
So you think the CBB doesn't do any Harper's Ferry, they just do Jefferson County and they don't do anything specific about Harper's Ferry? So
That was my understanding
Yeah,
from the prior.
I've seen the book last year's, and the picture was the map of the town, and it talks about the businesses in town.
I don't know, I just would like to hear somebody say that.
Well, part of what we can do is, in our responses to people is, and we discuss this with the merchants and with the other people like BZA and planning, is we can say, you know, this much money was allocated to you in the budget. However, we would like to have this information from you when you come back to request, make your final request, or this was not allocated to you. And we will be revisiting our budget, and if we are able to allocate it, we will let you know. So if there are these concerns, we can make note of them.
So I didn't hear anybody say, this is for sure this covers this, and this is what we want to put in the trail book. And also, there was no example of the trail book to say what we did, what did that money pay for last year?
I
You
got
know,
the
it
book,
just-
I have one,
There was just,
I didn't bring it.
I'm entirely familiar with the trail book, but somebody needs to say, okay, this is what, these 2 pages are what we paid for last year with the money that we got.
Okay, you know what?
Things like that, it just wasn't, just
Can
a
you
little
have,
bit more information.
email her, or us, what last year's was? I have it. I looked at it briefly, I believe it's the map.
I can also.
I mean, it's a legit expense, I mean, I even paid to be in it, my business.
Well, and the other thing that we are going to be a little more strict about this time around is we want to see the invoice for that.
Yep.
And that kind of thing.
Yes.
Before it gets paid.
Yeah, that's something we started doing in this council.
So.
The cemetery is not the foundation, that's the trustees.
No, that's exactly right, yes. The cemetery is not the foundation.
Yeah, it's
And
the
they,
Harper's Ferry Cemetery,
Right,
not Pine
right.
Grove.
right, and just so that you're aware, when they submitted this request for the 6,000, they also said that where they are with the Bollards project is they have an amount that they would like, that they had put in a request for, and they'd like to go ahead for this
Reassign
year to be paid that and then move on with this. So,
No, just pay them.
Oh, I see.
right, and I have the invoice that it was paid and that they're asking for reimbursement for that. And they've provided that to me now, so that'll be coming forward.
What, is that completed?
No, it's not completed, but they said we just want to be done with that part of it with the town right now, and we're gonna work on finishing the
And that
rest
was
of
in
it
last
later.
year's budget.
Right.
Yeah, so, so I'm working on pushing that paperwork forward, it'll come before y'all later.
And
I'm just
they
letting
had-
you know.
And they already paid for the bonds and have them someplace. They have them. They just haven't been installed.
Okay.
So, okay, so we got the first Zion, we've got the cemetery, are we on the cemetery? Okay, is there any other comments about first Zion?
No.
What? First Zion Church.
And you're asking, the trust is asking for a lot more based on the grant with the state, right? And
Oh,
we're
yeah.
Like part of it, kind of like
Yes.
with the roof. that
Exactly.
We were engaged in last.
Exactly, most of the
Mhm.
funding is coming from other grants and, and this is bit by bit, that it's happening.
Okay.
But this is critical for closing it in.
Is this another area where we're asking for invoices for,
Oh, yeah.
for what the money got used for?
Yeah, anything that actually gets allocated, there needs to be an endorsement.
Yeah, in the past, way in the past, I think we did more like, well, trust thing, we just check. That's not good enough.
That sounds good.
Years ago, we did.
So the cemetery,
For
is up towards the front, and it's behind, it's right behind,
What's this, or the other one?
That's the iron fence for the west side along Fillmore.
behind the library, and then the next thing is the Canal Trust, and then. the
There we go.
cemetery.
Fillmore Street iron fence.
And they want to get some work done on that part of the fence there.
I think the fence is down.
It is.
Yeah,
It's missed, it's not there.
Yeah. It's one of those.
Yeah. And they have spent a lot of money in the past, way more. The overall gate was over 20,000. The gate that you see, plus they spent on the back, one of the fences in the back, they spent a lot of money. back
Oh, yeah,
there.
that's a defining feature of that segment of Fillmore Street.
Oh, yeah. It's very historic.
so any comments on that? I'm just gonna leave it at the 6,000 for now.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, so Old Time Christmas, we had a talk with Kathy. She's gonna, what we've decided, based on what Christian said, is that for right now, we're gonna pull the 5,200 for the carriage out. So that's gonna drop our 10,800 to, what else?
Some of the changes that we're discussing are reflected in the sheet.
It's not reflected.
Right.
Yep, I'm doing it on the fly on my computer, and I'll give you a total at the end.
Cool.
Because I also didn't have the cemetery out there, so I added that.
Forces out. It's-
And then we also told her, we also discussed the lights, which they're gonna investigate. The amount of the bill of that 4,000, which was dedicated to the removal of the lights, was 1,200, so I'm gonna take 1,200 out.
Okay.
So how much does that end up being for the, each part? For
So
one-time
it ends
Christmas?
up being 5,900 for the greens, ribbons and lights, and then 5,600 for the music and performance. So a total of 11,500, and last year we gave them 14,800.
Okay, and that was the
That was the 50th
50th
anniversary.
so it's
da, 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 da.
back in line with the
Right.
multiple.
Yes, it is, Mark, yes. The library is next, so that can go back a little forward towards the front of that section if you're in the book. I think they were maybe.
Oh, there it is, second
Yeah.
one,
Yeah, there's
humanities.
We got 46 in there for those programs that she noted for arts and humanities. Last year, we gave them. I don't think they gave them 9,000. I think they asked.
No.
them, we didn't give it to them.
We did their electric door.
And I think they ended up not needing it all because they didn't do all their programs. So, yeah,
that's what she had said, is it was sort of the restart and
right.
coming back out of the gate.
The Appalachian Chamber Music Group gave thoughtful consideration to their original request of over $5,000, and they have re-represented it now as 2,000, which is what they asked. They have maintained that they would like this to be an ongoing event, which there was a lot of confusion about that as to what it was really all about. But they do want this to be an annual event, and they want us to be a focal point. So, but for this year, they're keeping it to 2,000, and they're looking into options for having ticket sales and things like that. So I think as time evolves and the program expands, they will fill in with that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, that's good. So you feel like they've come forth as a partner.
Yes, and they actually wrote in their email that they went back and they listened to all the requests that the other people had made and how they were orchestrated and constructed. And I think they understood better how it works, and that it's really a conglomerate of sources,
Yeah.
as it is a full community effort. And they also recognize that they were not able to secure their outside venue for their finale, and so they chose to just table that for now and go forward without it. So they dropped their request to the 2,000.
Okay.
And then this is where I had the wayside marker for the Weaver House. I don't know, I feel like that's kind of where it belongs, but it's not really historic preservation.
Where is it? Let's see.
Where's it being-
Historic, doing
No,
Oh,
there's
I
chamber
haven't-
music and then tree
See,
removal.
I must have not given you the proper information, on this.
Registration.
I'm terribly sorry. But I have $7,500 in here for the
That's
historic
what that's what
wayside
we asked
marker.
for.
And I'm not, I gotta go back and check on whether that's actually where that.
And that's landmarks.
Yeah,
It was
No, I
I've already been
remember.
working this for like 2 years.
Yeah. I remember it. So it's the combined sign that we do about the history.
They're
Down
in
the
the
street
park, right here.
and the Weaver Gillison House.
Right.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Is it a park, is it considered a park or is it?
It's in the park.
But
It's
it's
in
in,
the national park?
No,
no,
it's
no,
in
no,
our
no,
park.
in
here.
the
Oh, it's in
park-
our
the
park.
park formerly known as the Women's Club.
Oh,
Town
okay,
hall-
well
town
then
hall
it's
park.
totally park, okay, gotcha, all right, okay, very
It's
good.
just gonna be the end of it, and then it's gonna overlook from behind, we're gonna put, there'll be a brick walk behind the sign. So that when you stand there and look at the sign, then you can look up above it and see the street.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. Okay,
Boundary.
then I'll reread that again, but I do believe that fits into the qualifications there.
Oh, yeah, so it's a
Yeah.
park feature.
Yes, yes.
Right.
You're talking about the Weaver property.
Well, it was originally for the boundary. Weaver House is like been added to it. For years, we talked about just boundary.
An interpretive display.
Yeah.
So
We don't know if this building's gonna survive. If not, we would like to be somehow indicated, some representation within this diorama or whatever, interpretive display.
And part of the cost was for the design and part was for installation.
Big part is the design. It's really gonna be important. If you want an example, Oddfellows, that was done by David, who did that one. And he did 2 at the middle school in Baldwin.
Yeah, so it won't just be a sign sitting there, it'll really be a feature and situated in a way that you'll really be able to get a
Landmarks
sense for how the road was and the house.
Yeah, and we have also another one in the park, the other park, already at the gazebo.
Right, the one about the history of the gazebo in the island park.
That one does need to be fixed up. They only last so long. The sun and the weather beats these signs up. Particularly the panel has to be replaced according to David, every 5 years. I mean, that one's probably 10 or I don't know how old it is.
Right.
Zach was a Boy Scout when he put it
Yeah.
in, so it's gotta be
Yeah.
10 or 12 years ago.
The sign itself is going to be historic soon.
Yeah, the metal is fine. It's just the inside.
Yeah, it's not like it's a brand new expense, but
Yeah.
All right, so now we're down to the women's club. I was qualifying that as historic preservation. They had requested $5,000.
This is their first ask ever to the town of Harpersburg. Also, the bid that they had 3 bids for removing trees. And the trees are looming over the building, and they have bid like 11.5 or something. They didn't ask for all the money from us, they just asked for parts, so they're contributing a big chunk. What it's called.
And that's not reflected in their request,
No.
unfortunately, very well, which would have been
It's-
more helpful to
If you go,
realize that.
yeah, it's someplace, I saw it, it's buried in there.
well, I remember her speaking to it and
Yeah.
describing where the other
Yeah.
funds were going to come from, and that's above and beyond, like the property owner next door, and certain things that they were going to contribute, but they were at least going to ask. So that was the only source.
Yeah, their total cost on the project was $11,500, and they're only asking for $5 from us.
And they're gonna try to get the other owner of the property next door to do something, because it's their trees are part of the problem.
But you can't touch them except at the parts that extend.
Well, they said they'll give permission to the club to take it, let them take it out, but the club's trying to get them to come up with some funds.
Certainly costs them a lot more if the tree falls on someone else's property.
All right, so any adjustment to this number, or are you okay with it?
I'm good with it.
All right,
It's reasonable, given the cost of moving it. Plan to ask, the owner of the adjacent property to contribute. And they have actually
Yeah, and that it's rare for them, if ever, to ask, and give them what the contributions of the women's club have been.
Yeah, the club has given much to the town over 100 years, and this is where we can help.
All right, so we got,
Give back.
now we're down to Parks and Rec. We are, any comments on this, I guess? Wow.
Have they provided additional detail, like of everybody who submitted, we just got a single line. And
Right, we do not have a lot of, no, we don't have additional detail. I think they're willing to provide it. I think that they just have always presented it in a line item fashion, and in fact, Patty did ask me if she should go back and address like the park, well, like the library did, and I said, well, that would be really helpful.
Yeah,
know,
and I mean, the ones that have been held before, they're not quantities, but the newer
Yeah,
ones, just to
right.
have a sense of what they are.
So, that's another one that we can, when we respond, ask that when they bring forth their request, that they provide more detail, and I defer to your recommendation.
Yeah, I'd like to see at least more than just a line. I don't think it needs to be as detailed as what the library provided, and I don't imagine that they even planned them out entirely.
Right.
But at least, a little bit more than an elevator pitch, not a full work through, but just to have a sense of what we're
Okay.
doing.
And so do you want to approve these amounts and then ask
Yeah.
for that information and then, okay.
We'll get to that.
And I think they're fine with that as well.
Cool.
Again, lots of this is stuff that, that doesn't always all come off, and, it gets adjusted as they go, kind of thing.
I'd really go for the Oktoberfest.
I know you would.
Well, I know exactly what Oktoberfest is, but no, I don't see it.
It's
Oh.
not good because there's an issue with the licensing. So, all right, so
My
we've
favorite.
reduced so the number that you had on here, I had left off the HLC, right?
Yeah.
So that made that, adding that in, brought that whole ask for the year to $62,075.
And then
With
the
the-
things that were taken out.
With the adjustments that we took out, it dropped it to $55,675. So that would leave you approximately below about 40, not quite 40,000 carried forward, should all that be realized. Yeah. Most likely won't be, doesn't always. All right, so we're gonna go to the next page, which is your economic development. We talked about the guidebook. We have the membership dues from the canal towns, which we always pay. The Woodpecker Trail and the Flip Flop Festival, those were enumerated to us. The Merchants Association, they said we can take off the Facebook marketing because they're not gonna
Yeah, the
do
360.
that.
Yeah, because of the
That was-
340, that was to announce.
Oh, that's right. That was the Thomas Jefferson came across the Atlantic, and you can get around that.
Next year, we'll see it.
Yeah.
So what I did with the library was I put the 2160, I moved that over onto the line 926 for the library, just bumped that a little bit. I think I bumped it to like 3,500 and just left the homeschool supplies here, which I would consider that to be economic development, drawing in people rather than, it's not tourism, and it's not, you can't necessarily say that it's artistic.
No,
So I feel safer with it there.
it's weird though, because is there any place that's clearly educational in the budget?
I mean, aside from the library, no, we do not have an education line, and our support of the educational system comes through taxes of our
Yeah.
taxpayers, and that's not our responsibility to divvy up.
Yeah.
And the library probably doesn't, I don't know if the library falls under them at all, but
It's a weird gray area.
I mean, the other way to look at that would be to take that number, if you want to support it, and put it in the regular library line 926, not put anything in here,
I think that makes more sense.
okay? Any other comments on that? I can make that change.
Yeah, I think
Could you
so.
repeat that, please? What change
So-
you're talking about?
So we're thinking about this homeschool supplies line item for the library. does that really fit under economic development? And so if we want to, so we're concerned that it doesn't. So the other way that we could support that, but not included under economic development, is in the general budget, we do have a line that we give money to our library for whatever purposes they care to spend that on. And so what we would do is take it off of here and we would add it to that line item,
So the same amount, it just gets moved.
right?
And we don't have as much control on it, we're just gonna write them a check. for that,
Yeah.
Right.
Versus this here,
Yeah, I really wonder how they distribute homeschool supplies and what,
I looked it up. It's actually a common practice among public libraries. And it's not exclusively for homeschool, but there are materials and resources that tend to be more useful. So it might be instructional courses that parents or groups can use.
So our line item right now currently sits at 3,500, so we would make that 4,500.
Yeah.
Are we in favor of that?
Yep.
all right, I would like to add something to this trail book is basically, that we need to know what it's used for. Exactly.
No, we're gonna-
What was-
We
what was
talked
it?
about that earlier.
we're gonna get that from them. Yeah, they're gonna send us an email describing exactly what it is.
Yeah, and what did we pay for last year?
It's the same.
Yeah.
Well,
I think we discussed earlier that when we respond to them with what has been approved for this year, that we were gonna ask for an explanation of what they're spending it on, if they could, and they'll need to show us with an invoice, and we'd like some, just to know what they did last year.
Yes.
Okay. So for public transportation, this is something that really changed a lot. We'll certainly need to provide some explanation to council on that, because we typically do not give $7,500 to them. We do have a line item in the general fund budget, and what I did was I split this between economic development and the line item on the general fund. So let me find that and we'll tell you what I did. So for public transportation, we had been at 2,000, which is typically what we would have given at 1,500 to 2,000 in previous years. I bumped that to 4,500, and then I left the 3,000 in economic development.
and a few years ago, we kind of took their funds that were kind of for them, and we moved it to the train, the marked train, I remember.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
we kind of own a little.
Yeah, I feel like, the formula they use to determine what our share, I don't know, but I feel like it's important.
Well, we do have it comes every day.
Well, it's very much dependent on the bikers use it to get to Walmart. People use it to get to VA hospital.
I saw a lady got dropped off by the bus today. She had a whole bunch of groceries in her hands.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah, she was on Bolivar, but still,
we have to support it.
Yeah, I agree.
So, okay, so leaving that there, then down to Parks and Rec.
Yeah, just same thing.
Same comments, okay. So that brings our ask from 20. Oh no, we took out the library stuff too, okay. From $22,097 to $14,197, and I budgeted, I want to say 12. Oh no, I budgeted 17,
So it's.
so I'll make that 15. Unless I gotta make up somewhere else. Gets me down to 9, I gotta find. All right, okay, that's doable. I can, if you want to give me time, I can unless you have any other if you have any areas on the general fund budget that you feel like we should go lower on in expenses, that would pull that has our COLA at 5. And so anything that you would want me, is there anything you'd want me to go lower on? Otherwise, what I will do is pull that 9 out of the general government line and the contingency line to make a balance.
Yeah. No, we'll walk through.
Okay.
It seems solid.
If you want to give me just a few minutes
Sure.
to do that, and
Yeah.
then what we can do is make a final quick run at it. You can see how that falls, and you can approve it as amended.
Okay.
As long as what I will need to do is a final pass with Charlie, and as long you can say, as long as there's no other changes that they recommend, we don't need to meet ahead of council approving it. We can just set up our meeting for council next time. Okay, and then we could hold our regular meeting at the end of the month in order to approve all payouts out of fiscal 22 to go forward to the regular meeting for town council. That would avoid us having a budget and finance meeting next week.
That'd be nice.
All right, so you need a second here.
Yeah, in the meantime, I'll email maybe about the travel.
Did my number update over here?
Can I ask on this EPT, and this is not for you, Deb, this is like us. How do like hikers know about this show? I mean, is there a stop someplace, or is there? I'm just.
There's a stop right next to the BC2 bank.
Hmm.
If you've never seen it, there is an actual. looks like a
Oh,
bus
okay,
stop.
yeah. What about in Harper's Ferry? Is there an actual?
We can flag them,
Yeah.
and it's down at the train station. It's the actual, we have to turn around.
But how would a hiker know about this? I'm not
Well,
against it.
it's
I'd
on-
like.
It's on the literature the ATC gives out.
I see.
And,
Oh,
you know, and I definitely
Probably
have
word of
seen
mouth.
hikers at the ATC, like flagging it down.
Yes. I've seen that.
So they learn about it. It's also in any like trail book that the ATC does. They have their own trail book, and then there's another one. Are you familiar with, there's 2 big AT guides. And so in the information for Harper's Ferry, I'm pretty sure it's listed. Because people want to know how to get to the
I
bushes.
wonder if the Merchants Association puts it in on their map. I just want to make sure that, you know, if we're paying for something, I'd like it to be used.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I
But,
do see it, like, in,
I mean, I see the van every day, but I see it whooping by.
Yeah.
oh no, when I walk around there, I do see people on and off.
Once I left my keys in my car at Walmart. I took the bus to Harper's Ferry, got off at the hostel where I lived, walked in and got the keys, and by the time it went downtown and came back, I caught it to go back.
And there may be opportunities going forward for providing services that might be particular for events and things like that. Use it this time.
In fact, they are very willing to do that kind of thing. They're very willing to and interested in doing that kind of activities where we rent their buses and their people and they do.
They did that for the Holiday Inns tour as part of the Old Time Christmas. I think that was that.
No, it was some private, they had a beautiful band. It wasn't one of their band, these bands. It was a black one. Oh my God.
All right, I'm
Like,
gonna.
good music.
All right, so I did mostly what I said, but not. All right, so I dropped our general government to 700. We started fiscal 23 with 703, fiscal 22 with 703. With our first revision, we dropped it to 696, and we dropped it to 588 in revision 2, and I'm putting it back up at 700 to start. Okay.
Okay.
Then for contingency, I dropped it to 203. Can't be more than 10%. We're, 220 is probably a better number, honestly, but fiscal 22, we started at 207, and we were just 10% different, so I think that's probably okay. The other little thing I did just to spread it out a wee bit was I dropped this number right here a little bit by about $1,000, which is that accrued leave, which is higher because of the COVID, which I don't really anticipate.
And also, like from prior discussion, a large number of these are single time deals. These aren't things we're carrying.
Right.
Right.
So the other thing that I can do, I don't, and it's because of this computer back and forth, I was gonna try to update that, what does that give us for our cash flow thing for you?
Yeah.
See if I can do it and just give you a number at least. Here we go. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I reviewed this calculation with Charlie for fiscal 22, revision 2.
Yes.
We're sitting at 5.25 months of reserves.
Okay.
This plan, fiscal 23, sits us at 5.04 months
Okay.
of reserves. So we're not moving the needle very far with that.
Right. From the recollection is the prior fiscal year is like 6 to 7.
6 or 7,
Yeah.
but we're also up by good 10%.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't think that we
Yeah.
pushed very hard yet. Yeah. And especially if we're anticipating things to go up instead of down.
We're anticipating going up.
No, it feels responsible to me.
Yeah, I think it's very small. Yeah.
All right, well then, folks, I leave it to you now. I'm gonna stop my screen share and let you make your motion.
Okay, I guess the motion is I move to accept the fiscal year 2023 budget for the general fund as
As
amended.
amended. Oh, we didn't do coal severance.
Is that separate?
Yeah.
So that'd be a different motion.
Coal severance, can you sign them? It can be a separate motion.
Yeah. So motion is on the table.
I'll second it. Discussion? All those in favor? Okay, motion passes.
I did not give you the motion coal severance.
Wasn't it 3,000?
It was,
2,000? Oh, it was 2,000, but police department, I mean, fire department. Full servers.
Oil and gas severance.
oil and gas is different. We,
Oh,
it's different. It's
Is
on
that
its
not on
own.
here at
It's not on there at all. It's only a one-liner. I'm gonna pull up history in my QuickBooks right now and do a
Okay.
summary.
This was so much smoother than past years. I'm telling you. This was.
That's for sure.
I was worried that it was gonna turn contentious. but-
This typically can take 3 sessions.
Yeah.
Well, it
It's
helps when
you have it helps when you have a good year.
It helps when you have a good year and it
And good
helps
people.
when, yeah. And
Well, we did ask a lot of questions.
ask a
So
lot of questions and having history helps too, kind of being able to speak to trends and, that kind of thing makes a big difference.
Yeah, thank you, Deb. That was really key, especially for us who are new to this process to understand where it fit. And also in the first section, asking not just for the prior year, but where is the pattern?
Right.
So that's
Right. Yeah, very good. Well, you won't actually see it, but it is a one, it's an in and it's an out, so, I will. All right, so today we have $573 that we received in on hold. 573.
It's more than that.
Yeah,
I thought it was
well,
like
it's
1,000.
always, it's been, well, we had some carry forward, which made a difference. And so, that did make a difference in the past.
That chunk change.
Well, it is, but to other parts historically and in other parts of the state, it's a big number.
Yeah.
And it sometimes is all that's supported in many areas. And so the way that you use it is very important because you're only allowed to generate, when you look at it doesn't apply to us at all, but you're only allowed to put like a certain amount to your general operations and that kind of thing. So in other areas, it's a big deal. To us, it's just really a vehicle to support the,
For a town that has no hotels,
Yeah.
just nothing.
so we had, let's see.
Poor state we live
Let's see. Okay, so we thought that we would get 1,000 in this year, and we budgeted 440. We're only getting like 500, so we probably won't. We're going to probably need to adjust that before the end of the year when we do a last revision on fiscal 22 anyway. So I'd say we only look at maybe just 750 coming in.
Yeah.
And then a contingency of 100, a total of 850 on that. I can build it that way. So I would say that we set it up with based on $750 in income, $100 of contingency, and then paying that out as $750 to the fire department.
Okay, now does it have to be broken down like that in motion or just the?
No, it's very simple. So I think if you understand it that way, you can say that you agree to it as presented, and what will happen is I will.
And it's allocated as presented.
Allocated as presented. So when you get this is what it's gonna look like coming in the thing that you get to town hall. So in here, what will happen is you'll have $100 in contingency, and then over here where it has the income, it's instead of 900, it's gonna say 750. And so that's gonna give you a total income number of 850, and we're gonna give I would say, let me just go back and look at it when I'm doing this, but I would say 815, I will dedicate as much to the fire department as I possibly can.
Okay. Then I move to allocate the coal severance fund as presented.
In fire department.
Oh, okay.
As I just presented it, I will
Okay.
allocate as much of that 850 as we can, based on what it looks like we're carrying forward.
Right.
And $850 of total income.
Second, discussion. All those in favor? Okay, passes.
All right, coal severance.
That was just a part of it.
So are we done with our meeting?
I believe that we are.
Covered the action item.
The,
Yeah,
the action.
The only,
item.
the other thing
Just
that
wanna-
we should decide before we go here is for, and we don't have to do this on the meeting, it's just deciding on a date for 1 or 2 dates next week for the town council meeting for this.
Right.
But we can close the meeting and do that, that's administrative.
Okay, sure. I move to end our meeting at 5:59 PM.
Second.
All those in favor? All right,
Hang on.
so let's work on this. My phone.
So, 2 hours.
See where mouse is working.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, no, that's, I would say, was that taking minutes for that? But it's actually pretty easy.
We have a budget finance meeting